Alright, in this video I'm going to go over meiosis and sexual life cycles. When we talk about sexual life cycles, different organisms go through different sexual life cycles, but I am going to explain the sexual life cycle of a human. The first thing that I like to do is I like to draw this in a picture format. I think it's a lot easier to understand this. Now, say you have an adult female. Now, you would also use a sexual life cycle for a male, which we're going to do here in a moment. When we look at our own cells, I, Dr. McKinnon, am a female. When we look at my cells have two sets of chromosomes. I have a set of chromosomes from my father, which I'll draw as blue. And I also have a set of chromosomes from my mother. So I am considered to be a diploid organism. So the first thing that you always need to understand is the difference between the word diploid cell and haploid cell. When we look at my cells, my body cells, we are going to call these somatic cells. So my body cells are called somatic cells. And inside of these somatic cells, I have one set of chromosomes that are going to come from my father. And I have one set of chromosomes that come from my mother. When you have two sets of chromosomes, one from your dad and one from your mom, or your father and your mother, you are considered to be diploid. So my adult body cell is classified as being diploid. Di means two. So another way to write diploid is 2N. The word 2N means one set from mom and one set from dad. Now, in my life cycle, I undergo mitosis, where I divide my cellular nuclear cells to make more body cells, but I also am going to make eggs. And when you take your body cell and you have a special form of cell division that makes sex cells, that is known as meiosis. So what happens is I undergo a special type of cell division known as meiosis. The word meiosis. This is going to be cell division that leads to the production of gametes, which are called sex cells. Gametes are sex cells. Now, my sex cells obviously cannot have information from both my father and my mother. Now, there can be a combination of them, and we'll go through those, but I can only give half of my information. So, my sex cells, because I'm a female, is called an egg or an ovum. So let's just say that this particular egg cell, so this is an egg cell, that's my reproductive cell. This is a gamete, it's a sex cell, has my mother's information. That would be a form of meiosis. Now, a sperm from a male would have to come and fertilize this egg in order to produce a new cell. So I make the gamete egg. So I like to draw this picture without us having all this information on here, with both male and female, because it makes a lot more sense. So the word gamete means a sex cell. That's the definition of a gamete. So we're going to do this picture again, but we're going to use both male and female. So you can draw two cells. One is going to represent an adult female going under meiosis, and one is going to represent an adult male undergoing meiosis. So you can label your green line, if you're doing this color coded, as meiosis. That is going to be dividing your adult body cells into sex cells called gametes. So this will be the female. The male obviously is going to have a sperm cell. And these are called your gametes. Gametes are going to be your sex cells. So we can say that this is a female and this is the male. Now, a man is going to also have a set of chromosomes from his own father and mother, just like the female is. I would. When we look at these cells, because they have a set from their mother and a set from their father, we can simply write the word 2N inside of them because we know that their chromosomes are diploid. They have one set from their father and one set from their mother. Both my cells and a male cells are 2N because I have one set from mom, one set from dad. So when you say 2N, that means that they are diploid. They have one set from each parent. Now gametes, on the other hand, are going to only have information from either their mother or father. So let's just say I produce an egg that has my mother's genetic material, and he produces a sperm that has his mother's genetic material. You can only have half the number of chromosomes in your sex cells. So your gametes are your sex cells. So this is the egg for the female and sperm for male. Now, when we talk about gametes, they can only have half the number of chromosomes because a sperm will fertilize the egg, and that's how you produce a new baby. So, egg cells are considered to be haploid. Haploid means it has half the chromosome. So this egg cell has my mother's genetic material. So we classify gametes as haploid. Haploid literally means it has one set of chromosomes. So it's either one set from your mother or one set from your father that you pass along in your egg cell to your child. So we literally write it as 1N. Diploid, 2N, means that you have two sets. But those two sets are coming from your mother and father, but I can only pass half of my genetic material. So when we say the word haploid, it's one set. It's either from your mother or father. So when we look at this life cycle, I literally can say, okay, this egg has the genetic material of my mother and the sperm has the genetic material of his mother. So these are considered to be 1N. It's got one set. Now, what happens during sexual reproduction is you have sex and the sperm cell interacts with your egg. So what happens next is literally these two become fused together, which is known as fertilization. In fertilization, the sperm cell is going to fertilize the egg cell. So you take 1 in, because it's half the number. The sperm is also 1 in, and you create a new individual. When you say fertilization, you literally are saying 1 in plus 1 in. But really, when you say fertilization, the sperm cell is fertilizing the egg cell. Now, a new individual is created. So in this, you create a baby. Do this as blue. No, purple. Doesn't matter. The baby is then known as a zygote. So you could literally say, this is my egg and some random guy's sperm. Whatever you want to say, it could be yourself. Now, this new baby is going to have genetic material from me and genetic material from the father, and this is the new cell. Now, I could ask you if it's diploid or haploid. Well, the answer is, because now it's got genetic material from a mom and genetic material from a father, it is considered to be diploid. But after fertilization, you have a new cell, a new organism. The new cell or the new organism that occurs after fertilization is known as a zygote. A zygote basically is a baby. Now that's one single cell. Now this zygote could be a male and this zygote could be a female. This is the new baby. Literally think of it as a baby that is formed. It is a single cell. A single cell. One cell. So in order for this one cell to become a male or a female, that cell has to actively divide and reproduce. So we would say that that zygote is going to divide and produce more cells until it becomes a male. So that would be mitosis. The zygote cell is going to divide until it makes 2 new cells. And those 2 new cells are going to make 2 more cells until you have a new adult organism. But when you talk about mitosis versus meiosis, meiosis, you're going to produce sex cells which have half the number of chromosomes. But because this is a zygote and you're undergoing mitosis, literally, this is genetic cell division. It is going to form a new individual. It's going to keep dividing until you create a new person and you have a baby that is born. So a zygote is a single cell. So you have to take that single cell and keep dividing until you create a baby. And so mitosis is genetic cell division. It just keeps going until you produce that male. So meiosis is going from diploid to haploid cells, which are going to be haploid gametes. Fertilization is taking 2 haploids to create a zygote, which is a 2N. And then mitosis is you take your single zygote and you keep dividing until you keep making more diploid cells until you make the new individual or the new baby. So, when we talk about meiosis, meiosis is a form of cell division that leads to the production of gametes. Gametes are sex cells, so it's egg cells for the female and sperm cells for the male. They do contain half the number of chromosomes, so they're considered to be haploid. Now, our adult body cells are known as somatic cells. Body cells are somatic cells. All of our body cells contain information from our own mother and father, so we say they are diploid. You have one set from your dad and one set from your mother. But the cell life cycle is easily understood when you draw it in this kind of picture. So in our life cycle, the first thing for sexual life cycles is you produce gametes. When you have the fusion of your sperm cell with your egg cell, that's called fertilization, to produce a diploid having two sets of zygote. And that zygote is going to become a new individual which goes through its own life cycle.